You're watching Eye on Africa here on France 24. I'm Julia Kim. These are the headlines on the continent. Nigerian doctors suspend their strike, saying they'll allow the government time to meet their demands over pay and working conditions. This amid the spread of the coronavirus. From Senegal to Sudan, record-breaking floods submerged swathes of the Sahel. Over 750,000 people have been affected, and the rain is set to continue. And what was once a delicacy, roasted field mice are becoming a staple food in rural areas of Malawi as meat becomes a scarcity during the coronavirus pandemic. But first, Nigeria's doctors have suspended an indefinite strike that had threatened to cripple the country's health system. The National Association of Resident Doctors said it would give the government time to address their demands. The union represents nearly 40% of the country's physicians. Unlike previous strikes, this time doctors treating coronavirus patients took part. For more, here's France 24's Sam Olukwaya in Lagos.
The strike by the National Association of Resident Doctors, which started on Monday, has been suspended. The strike is being suspended to allow the government look into the demands of the doctors. The government will be doing this in the next 2 weeks. The doctors are making a number of demands. This includes the payment of salaries. They said they are being owed a lot of money. They are also asking for the payment of COVID-19 allowances and the payment of hazard allowances. The doctors are also asking for the provision of personal protective equipment. They said the scarcity of this, especially in the isolation centers where COVID-19 patients are being treated, is creating problems for their colleagues. They said a number of doctors have been infected with COVID-19 as a result of the scarcity of personal protective equipment. They said some of these doctors have actually died. In June, the doctors went on strike, and after several meetings with the government, they called off the strike. The government for now said it has met 6 of the 8 demands that the doctors are making, but the doctors said the government has not done this far. Now the government is threatening that it will revoke the residency program which the doctors are undertaking. This is a program that enables the doctors to become a specialist. So this is a major problem for both sides. While the strike was on, there was problems in the COVID-19 centers because there were inadequate doctors to take care of the patients. This is the first time these doctors have gone on strike in the COVID-19 centers as a result of disagreement with the government. We've seen a number of strikes in the past, but related to the COVID-19 pandemic. But for the first time, we've seen doctors in the COVID-19 center joining their colleagues elsewhere to go on strike.
Well, turning now to Ethiopia, the Tigray region's ruling party has won elections that have been called illegal by the federal government. The Tigray People's Liberation Front won all 152 seats being contested in Wednesday's polls. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed had postponed them due to coronavirus, but Tigray went ahead with the vote anyway. It marks a low point in the bitter dispute between Abiy's government and the northern region. In a country with over 80 ethnic groups, Tigrayans had dominated Ethiopian politics for nearly 30 years, but they've been sidelined since Abiy came to power in 2018. Now in Mali, the military junta and some 500 politicians, NGOs and civilian groups are mapping out a political transition. It's the second round of talks after the overthrow of President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta last month. The proposals being discussed include a 2-year transitional government led by a president picked by the army. It's led to stark divisions even among the M5 movement, which played a pivotal role in the coup. Some want the military to stay longer to tackle the problems that have driven the country to the brink. Others say that this would worsen instability in a country battling an extremist insurgency.
The military cannot make propositions. It's up to the sovereign people of Mali to make suggestions. My personal view, and the suggestion from our Gao region during these talks, is to have a civil leader governing the transition.
My main goal is to have a military leader in power. It's open for all to see that a third of Mali is occupied. If you look at the state of Mali, who can dare say today that they should give power to a civilian? It will never work. It will never work. The country is at war. We need a military man. Period.
Well, from Senegal to Sudan, floods have inundated swathes of the Sahel region. They've claimed over 200 victims and affected over 750,000 people. Flooding is common during the rainy season, but this year's downpours have broken records in some countries. Maud Julien explains why.
Since June, intense rains have led to devastation across West and Central Africa. A UN agency estimates that about 760,000 people are affected by this year's flooding. In big cities like here in the south of Khartoum, some districts are entirely submerged. In Niamey, 9,000 houses have collapsed in a dozen villages after the Niger River overflowed. People found refuge in schools or with relatives. Many say the disaster is man-made and could have been avoided.
Zamso haro da fumboriyan farag zamna ika goro da gwamnati ne irno nun kan koi goro wallahi irwo irga fanda batama.
The causes of the deadly floods, which have become more frequent over the past decade, are well known. They're due to heavier rainfall and also to changes in land use, namely deforestation, the reduction of uncultivated land, and uncontrolled urbanization, all of which decrease the soil's capacity to absorb water.
What should have been done was to clean the gutters and clear the ditches and halt deforestation in the countryside. Because if the water flows in with such violence, it's because too many trees have been cut down and there is nothing to hold it back. So we must take measures now to change this. Otherwise, every year when there is heavy rainfall, there will be the same problem.
Across the affected countries, people are demanding better government policies to stop the floods. In Senegal, the opposition has accused those in power of intentionally abandoning a 10-year plan of over €1 billion aimed at addressing the issue.
Now, in other news, the Japanese operator of a ship that leaked oil off Mauritius will pay at least €8 million to help fix the damage. The measures include running mangrove and coral protection projects and an environment recovery fund. The bulk carrier ran aground late July and eventually split into two. Over 1,000 tons of oil is thought to have seeped into the island nation's pristine waters. The accident is still under investigation by Mauritian authorities. Meanwhile, the CEO of the company says it will assume responsibility.
First of all, in order for our company to fully assume its social responsibility, we commit ourselves to give our maximum through aid and support measures to the inhabitants of Mauritius. We still need to investigate how big the damage will be and how long it will take for recovery. In this sense, I cannot tell you exactly how many years we are committed to. However, our company wants to make a serious commitment to the environmental protection of Mauritius and to help the daily life of its inhabitants.
And finally, roasted field mice have always been a traditional seasonal snack in the southern African country of Malawi, even when food was bountiful. However, under the crippling impact of COVID-19, this unique delicacy has become an unlikely savior in rural areas.
Roasted field mice kebabs are a popular Malawian delicacy. Vendors usually sell mice meat next to this busy highway between the commercial hub of Blantyre and the capital, Lilongwe. Bernard Simeon is a mouse hunter. Now, during the coronavirus pandemic, his small trade has gained new importance.
Since the start of COVID-19, life has been difficult. As a result, we rely on mice hunting and selling so that we can sustain our livelihood.
Traditionally, village children hunt the mice, smoking them out of their holes. They are then cooked, salted or dried. Some Malawians choose to eat mice, but at the moment for others, like Simeon's family, it is the only meat they can get.
Most times we rely on my husband when he goes out and works. When times are hard, we rely on mice to supplement our diet because we cannot afford to buy meat due to the lack of money.
Mice meat might conjure up ideas of unsafe or unsanitary food, but local health authorities don't discourage their consumption.
They still, if ever your community is able to take mice, you are able to take mice, it's one of the source of proteins. So you are free to take whatever is there, so as you get the required or the recommended amount of proteins.
More than 50% of Malawians already lived below the poverty line before the virus struck. The country has had under 6,000 official cases of COVID-19 up to now, but the economy, people's livelihoods, has been the big victim. Long after the virus has disappeared, mice may still be an important food source on the household table.
And that's it from us. There's more news coming up. Stay tuned to France 24.
Residents from France's disadvantaged suburbs tell their own stories and take the viewers beyond the usual clichés about the French banlieue.
Sur le plan humain, c'est une expérience de fou en fait.
Les habitants valent beaucoup mieux que ce qu'on en dit.
Tu rends fier ta ville, les gens qui, quand ils me voient dans la rue, me disent « je suis fier de toi, je t'ai vu passer à la télé, c'est bien comment t'as parlé, tu nous as bien représenté ».
Watch their daily reality in the Banlieue Project on France 24 and France24.com.